Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to the Thursday live stream where we talk about photography and catch up on what's new and see how everybody's doing. And I do my best to answer any questions about Olympus cameras and photography in general, drawing on my relatively limited experience compared to many of you. I'm always impressed with sort of the experience and life that you guys have led because many of you email me and we kind of go back and forth time to time, and it's always interesting to see the stories and things you guys have done. Because I noticed when I look at my statistics, a lot of you are retired. I mean, my biggest audience is 55 and older, and if you go 45 and older, it's well over half my audience, and so I'm in good company. Uh, is basically what I'm trying to say in terms of age, but not in terms of experience, because I've only been shooting myself, uh, really only seriously since about 2012, which is, gosh, 9 years now. So I guess I'm getting up there, and I should know what I'm doing by now. But some of you have been shooting since I was born, starting with film and then moving on to all the various iterations we've had in photography in terms of gear. So thank you for joining me today and spending it with me. I really appreciate it. It's always the highlight of my day, and I get a certain amount of satisfaction out of uh, helping others the best I can, and um, and talking to everybody from around the world because it's really a luxury we have now in our society to be able to stream and reach out to a worldwide community, and it's a kind of exposure that I wouldn't even have dreamed of, when I was in my 20s, before the internet existed, right? Uh, Anyhow, that's enough of that of retrospective. But I got some nice emails yesterday from some of you, and I try not to reveal any personal information I get from emails that I receive. So if I don't mention you by name or talk about some of the things that impress me, it's just a general policy of mine not to disclose those things, um, because you never know what people consider confidential or private, between two people, right? So, but I see you here today, so I really appreciate the email. I did email you back, but I do appreciate the email you sent me yesterday. And let's see who else is here. We have Scott and Demorkin, John Follows, John Yutze, Marsha. Always good to see you. And Serge is here. And let's see. This is a new name I haven't seen before. Your senior tuber 55. Great day in Delmarva. Day for moody landscapes, woodland images. Why not? Olympus is not impaired by rain. That's right. Our Olympus cameras have basically renowned weather sealing, and it's very well respected, I think, among the photography community, how good their cameras are in terms of weather sealing. Even the cameras that are not weather sealed, and I've been out in the rain and gotten them soaked, and they work fine up until the point that I felt it wasn't comfortable anymore to keep shooting with how wet they were. So I shut down and go home and take the battery out and let it air dry, right? Open up the battery cover and the screens. Um, and I've never had a camera fail on me, weather sealed or not, in various conditions. Now I'm not one to go out in the rain. Generally speaking, I don't even like to go out when it's cloudy. It's just the light is very soft and flat, and people say that that's good for black and white, but I don't know. I I like contrasty images, punchy images. Oh, okay. And Moises B's photography's here. Good to see you. Corna, Danny Drake. Good morning, Chuck. Um, Wow, you sold a Fujifilm and bought an EM1 Mark II. Wow, you've gone through a few. I know you had that X100, uh, and then you had an X20, right? And they were making great images. Did you get rid of those too? Because I know you paid next to nothing for those, and those are neat little cameras. I looked at the X20 and X30s. You know, these are the older compact cameras that Fuji used to make, and they were really unique and compact, and I thought were great travel cameras. It's kind of a market that's virtually evaporated now that everybody uses cell phones. But for those of us that enjoy photography, these different kinds of cameras give us a little different experience when we go out in the field, right? At least for me, I enjoy the different experience, the tactile differences, the use, the workflow differences with the different cameras, and then ultimately the different kinds of images you get. And they're very subtle sometimes, right? Just slightly different color science, maybe, or slightly different lens characteristics like the bokeh or even the softness, of the lens can add some character to it. And then whether you use a real EVF or just use a viewfinder in general, right? An optical viewfinder, and then there's the SLRs where you're looking right through the lens as well. All these things are just help us to enjoy our craft, our hobby, whatever it may be for you. And I know I certainly enjoy it, and that's why I have so many cameras. Even though I don't get to a lot of them very often, it just it's hard to let go. Unlike Serge, he said he let them all go. I just can't believe it. I would never have that kind of willpower. Because there are cameras I just haven't touched forever, like my XT30. Um, but I can't bring myself to let it go. My EM5 Mark II, which really I have no need for it at all, but it's just such a wonderful camera. Uh, but that's another camera I hardly ever use, other than making the tutorials and stuff. But anyway, I did want to talk about a couple of things that happened this week. But let me get to a question real quick. And when you ask a question, if you click or I'm sorry, if you put my name in front at robtrek, I'll see it a little bit sooner or easier for me to see. So let me put this question up. Uh, says here, what's your opinion of the Olympus 75 to 300 zoom? Are there faster in the same price range, zoom or prime, you'd recommend? Okay, so I have this lens, and I've got the lens hood on it, so it looks bigger than it actually is. But this is a very compact, lightweight zoom, 75 to 300, and really in good light at the wider focal lengths, it's very good. It's actually pretty sharp when you're in very good light. And even on the long end, like 250 to 300, it does soften up a bit. And, stopping down helps a little, F8, F9 maybe. But at that point, you have to it's a good idea to make sure you're at a base ISO 100 in very good light to get the best results. Otherwise, the images will be soft. And I would say you have virtually, any cropping ability that you might want to do at that focal length is um, wow, having a senior moment. But if you want to try and crop something down to half or a quarter the size of the frame, at that point it's just a little bit too soft and not really usable for printing, or it's fine for displaying on Instagram, but there's not much detail left at that point. And so like I said, in good light, bright sunny days at base ISOs, it's terrific, and it focuses relatively fast. It's not, the motors in it are fairly quick, and So if you want to do sports action, birds and flight type stuff, I don't think you'll really have any issues, as a non-professional. If you're not getting paid for the kind of work, then I think you'll get good results. I've gotten many, many great images from that lens, but I have just as many bad images when the light is poor or I have to bump the ISO. Because when you take a lens that's not tack sharp, right, and then you start raising ISO on it, that's when you really start the images really start to fall apart. Now, the second half of that question was, are there other fast, lenses, prime or zoom, that I could recommend? And I'd say if you don't need that extra long reach, over 75 millimeters, the 75 millimeter f1.8 is an excellent lens and a great compromise. And a very good use case for that lens is sports action, like at a hockey game, where, you're indoors, the lighting's not great. A lot of times you're shooting through plexiglass that's been all marred up. But that lens, it's a really good focal length for that type of venue because you can take a picture from across the entire ring and still crop in and get a decent image of, say, the goalie on the other end of the hockey field. And then for the close-up images, say they're mid-ring, you can get 3 or 4 players really tight in the shot, get a crop in maybe down to their hockey sticks where they're, kicking the puck around. And for those that would be a good. Now, if you need longer focal lengths, then my next recommendation would be the 40 to 150 f2.8 Pro lens, and then get a 1.4x teleconverter. And then if you need even longer focal lengths, then really the only option is maybe the 100 to 400. I forget which one it is, but the one that's about $1,500, the 150 to 400. It's the cheaper of the two mega zooms that Olympus just came out with, not the $7,000 one. I think that the images out of that are definitely superior to the 75 to 300, but not quite as good as the 40 to 150. And I'm extrapolating this from all the sources and feedback that I've gotten on these lenses from my viewers. In different places you read online. I don't actually own any of those lenses because I'm not really a telephoto type shooter. I don't really need telephoto lenses um, that I would risk spending the money on one and then never use it. Something like this, $399 all day long. You can get this, sure. But that would be my recommendation. Is the 75 f1.8 or the 300 f4, and then the 40 to 150 with a 1.4x teleconverter. If you're going to try and step up from this lens, if you don't want to drop that kind of money, right? Like me, I don't really want to drop that kind of money on a telephoto. This is perfectly fine in good light. And things I've done is I've used flash with some birds in flight photos. Where's my mouse? I'll show you. Let me give you a quick look at my oops. Here on my Instagram, robtrek lens, right? I took these bird images, these 4, in my backyard using the 75 to 300. I think I put the settings in there. Yeah, ISO 200 with flash, ISO 250 with flash. So yeah, I put the exit data up here so you can kind of get a feel. But these are all processed in Lightroom, and I did my very best to bring out the details of the birds. Now this is the best one in terms of detail. But this bird was very close to me. I was able to fill the frame with this little tiny bird. Whereas like this cardinal was probably 10 meters away, 30 feet from me. And I had to crop down to almost 2 or 3 megapixels to get this image. And you can see that the fine details in the feathers are pretty much gone. I mean, you can still see there's feathers and there's texture and everything, but again, keep in mind that I was worked really hard in Lightroom to bring out as much as I can in terms of detail. But you can get nice images out of this because let me look at the settings. ISO 200 f6.7 1/80th of a second with the flash. So the 1/80th of a second at 300 millimeters, there might be some minor motion blur as well, even with IBIS and all that stuff. That might be contributing to the softness of this image, however subtle. But those are some good examples, I think, of what you can expect from this lens when you're at the long end. At the shorter end, it's sharper, and if you can get closer to the subject, it's excellent. But on the long end, like all of these bird pictures, this is what you'll get. Okay, let me go back. And let's see, I thought I saw a couple other questions here. And Serge is saving up for his 12 to 100. Yeah, excellent lens. And Tony's using his DSLRs time to time. Yeah, I mean, why not? And use your senior tuber 55 is asking, can you use peaking to fine tune? Let me put it on the screen. Can you use peaking to fine tune the AF when shooting in AF mode with the OMD 1.3? Might you touch in proper settings? Yeah, you'd have to be an SAF plus manual, right? So let's say you have pressed the shutter button, you lock in to what the camera thinks is the correct focus point, and then you can turn the lens ring, focus ring if it has one, most of them do, to fine tune the, the focus. And sometimes I'm trying to recall, I don't do it very often, but I think uh, the peaking may come in automatically if you have it set right. Or what I do is I actually assign a button to focus peaking. I actually assign the front button here to focus peaking. So I'll have pressed the shutter button, tap the focus peaking button, and then rotate the ring to get that extra fine tuning. Personally, I prefer, rather than focus peaking, is magnify and have it punch in to the point that I want it to focus on and manually focus visually using magnify. Because I depending on the lens, sometimes focus peaking can be a little hard to use. Lenses like this 75 to 300, for example, that's a little bit soft. The focus peaking isn't that great on lenses that are a little bit soft, kit lenses like this. But if you're using a pro lens, focus peaking is excellent. It's really, because focus peaking works by looking for contrast in the image, and then it highlights that contrast. And if you're using this at the long end, the contrast drops quite a bit, and then focus peaking is hard. So I prefer personally to manually focus using the magnify button. But yeah, that's how you do it. Or how I do it, I should say. And good morning, Scott. I'm doing well. You're talking to DeMorgan, my bad. But Peter Cardo from Denmark, good to see you. And then Rob Shoot Photos has a recommendation here. The alternative is the Lumix 100 to 300 f4. It's about 150 more. It's brighter lens, but with an Olympus camera, you deal with more chromatic aberrations. Yeah, sometimes the lens profile in the Panasonic lenses are not shared with the Olympus body. And the lens profile contains information, like focal length, f-stop, but also any defects in the lens that can be corrected in camera, like chromatic aberration. And I haven't tested this myself, but I hear this all the time, right? That when you're using Panasonic lenses on Olympus bodies, you lose some of the barrel distortion correction, or you might lose the chromatic aberration correction or vignetting correction. That's all in the EXIF data of the lens that's communicated to the camera. And sometimes that doesn't get communicated from Panasonic to Olympus. Um, and that is all, again, I'm extrapolating from what I hear from my viewers and what I've read online. It's not it's not a fact or something I've tested myself. And DeMorkin says the 100 to 300 is sharper, but has a lot of CA in the viewfinder, not the raw, which I find distracting. And he says that the raw chromatic aberration is similar. So let me put that up for you guys to read. And this is what I mean. You guys have tremendous experience with a variety of gear and techniques and skills that I don't. So it's great that we can come here as a community and share our experience, right, with different things and skills. Um, okay. And Music Sound Gear's here. Hello. You're actually able to make a live broadcast. I know you pop in and out from work sometimes, right? Um, but I'm glad you could make it today. Yeah, I agree with you, Music. I can't wait till the weather's a little better. This week is going to be the last cold week, I hope, of our winter, because spring is this weekend, I think, is the first day of officially of spring, maybe. I don't know exactly. It's soon, if it hasn't passed already. And I looked at the next week's weather forecast, and we're going to be like in the 60s every day. But this week we still have one more night that's going to hit below freezing, and then that should be it. Oh, thank goodness. And daylight savings time kicked in, and as much as I complain about it, I like it when it kicks in the spring. I dislike it in the fall. So if I had to pick one, I'd pick the one in the spring. Uh, but I would be content if they just stopped changing it altogether, right? Just got rid of it. Um, I'd be fine either way, but I prefer the springtime. Oh, sorry, I need to sit back. I'm still dealing with this neck, but it's getting better. It's getting better. I think another couple of weeks, I should be pretty much back to normal. Like I actually made an extra video this week, right, on the histogram or whatever. So that was and that's a direct result of me feeling a little better and being able to sit down in front of a computer for a few hours and crank out a video. I'm still not going to be going back to double streaming where I'm doing 4 or 5 hours a day, but I think I can definitely get 2, 3 times a week, couple hours a day for now. And then maybe in a month or two, I can start vlogging and cranking out even more videos and tutorials. Because I started a new series, maybe you've seen it. I call it Ask robtrek, right? Where I get questions here in the stream that I thought might be of particular interest to everyone, and I create a separate video uh, on that question. And it's not a deep dive like I do on my fine print series or my tutorials. It's more just to answer that specific question, so people don't have to dig through hundreds of videos or go through hundreds of hours of live streams to find the answer to one little thing, right? So that's why I kind of created that series, and they're easy for me to make because I don't have to uh, put as much time into planning or thinking about step by step, right? Uh, so that I don't miss any gaps or lose anyone in the process. Because my tutorials, I always try to make sure that I go through every step so that even if you know nothing about a camera, you can follow along, to some extent. And and it makes the videos very long, right? 30, 40 minutes, an hour sometimes, versus this Ask Rob Trek series, I think Yeah, 10 or 12 minutes is still a long time to answer one question, but I don't want to make it completely useless to everybody. I have to at least establish, some basic steps and reasons and caveats, right? Like in the histogram video, and this is another thing I wanted to talk about. Um, where was I going? In the histogram video, while I was making the video, I ran into a problem using the histogram. And so I had to pause and make a separate 2 or 3 minute section in the 12-minute video about it. And specifically, it was when you have the live view boost on, the histogram does not represent the exposure anymore that you're trying to set. So, and this actually, when I thought about it, this happens a lot in a lot of the tutorials I make when I'm going step by step by step. I'll run into a problem I never ran into before, and I have to pause and make a whole different couple of minutes about that one issue, or add it at the end as a caveat. These are potential problems or things you have to look out for when you're trying to achieve or do this certain type of thing. And I think that's uh, I think I would say probably a third of my videos are like that. Um, particularly like the live view boost videos, the live composite videos, the very specialized features that we have in our cameras. All of a sudden, like the function button videos that I've done, when I was trying to program buttons and develop a systematic way of programming things, I'd go back and test it and see how it worked. I don't just assume things are going to work with these different settings. And then I'm like, oh man, look what happened. Now I have to cover this as a caveat. If you're going to do this, you can't have this setting turned on. If you want to use this profile, you have to turn off this other thing. Otherwise, this profile is not going to show up, right? And these are things I didn't know when I started making the video. My premise of the video might have been, how to use video settings. And then as I'm developing the tutorial, I find out, there's other settings that are affecting what I'm trying to teach. Um, so and that's one thing about my videos and why they end up being so long, but I try to be thorough. And then uh, there was one other way. I articulated this in my mind last night, and I said I wanted to share this. Now I can't remember. I didn't sleep well last night. I made the mistake of taking a nap during the afternoon, and then I was up till 2 in the morning, and then I got up for my normal time. I don't know what it is, but your normal wake up time seems to hit you no matter what time you go to bed. So I woke up at my normal 5 a.m. time, with only 3 hours of sleep, and then I just kind of got patchy sleep for the next 2 hours. Uh, but okay, maybe it'll come to me as I'm reading these comments here. Robert Donato, or D Donato's here. Robert D. Donato, I should mention, does have a YouTube channel on Olympus cameras, and he likes to do vlogging and share tips and tricks or things that he learns from his experience by using Olympus. So just search his name up. Let me put up his name here so you can find it. Um, yeah, it has been a while, Roberto. But his most recent video was about the 14 to 150 kit lens that comes with the EM5 Mark II a lot of times. And he was finding that right at about the 25 millimeter zoom, when you're zooming in, right when you hit about 25 millimeters, there's a little bit of resistance before going past that. And I thought that was a great video with your dog and the little pop-ups, uh, comments, because yeah, I'm kind of with your dog on that one. You're a little bit hypersensitive to that. I mean, if it's really bad, yeah, there's a problem, but there is a very subtle bump, and I think you and I are on the same page in that respect. Is once you hit 25 millimeters, the lens starts engaging other lenses inside or additional gears to push those extra lenses past the 25 millimeter point, and that's why you feel that resistance. And it never really it hasn't gone away on my lens, uh, but it's so subtle now. Like I didn't notice it until you brought it up in one of the comments that the lens had an issue. Um, so when you asked me about it, I was like, yeah, there is a little bit of resistance there, but it was very slight. Okay. And more confirmation that the Lumix 100 to 300 is sharper from Peter. So thanks for sharing that. Uh, and Jeff Painter's asking, I'm curious what most folks set their LN function to do on the Olympus lenses. So I never use mine, so I don't set it for anything, but because I only have one lens that has it, the 12 to 40 Pro, and it's not a lens I use very often to begin with. Um, so if you have any feedback for Jeff, go ahead and just leave a comment directed to him on that. I think some people, I mean, it would seem like focus peaking or magnify would be, I don't know. If I had to program it, I might program it for magnify, depending on which camera it is. If it's any of the OMDs, I would definitely probably program my LNF function to be a magnify function. But I don't know. That would require me to move my hand off the camera to push it. So it would have to be maybe something where um, you don't have to be fast, right? Like, so any kind of function you would use if the camera was on the tripod, then might program the LN function to something that doesn't require you to be quick or take your hand off the camera to push it. I think. Let me see how it is. Yeah, the frickin' LF button is on the right side and my right hand is here. And when you hold your camera like properly with your left hand, um, you can move your thumb to push it. Like on the 12 to 40 Pro, it's here. But it's not ideal for me anyway. My thumb doesn't quite reach. I have to twist my even so I twist my left arm to get to it. So I would program it to something a little bit uh, undemanding in terms of speed of access, right? So, okay. And I see a question. Oh, thank you, Demorkin. I think Serge had a question here, and I'll try and pull it up. I'll just leave this note for Thomas until till I can find Serge's question. Um, okay, I have to hide that because I'm having trouble finding. What is this one? This is from Scott. What do you know about the Olympus AGPS utility? I found it by going to the Robin Wong's page to the OMD Malaysia. I don't find it on the OMD US page. I don't know anything about it. I have no idea what that is. I'm sorry. I have no clue. Never heard of it. If it's something to do with the app, uh, there's ways to track your progress when you have the app in your phone. So use the GPS in your phone to track your locations and where you took pictures when it's connected to the camera. But yeah, it's not something that it's never an issue that I've had to solve for myself, so I never look for it. Um, I just don't see a need personally for GPS uh, for the kind of photography I do. I don't travel a lot. I just go to very familiar places locally. So sorry, Scott. That's one I have no idea. And yeah, Roberto thinks he may have had a dud because of the because he asked Alan Gamble. Okay, I see Serge's question now, but but just to follow up with Roberto's, so check out Roberto's channel and his video on that if you have that lens, and see if you have the same issue, and you can maybe leave a comment in the comment section to him what how your lens is. And Siegfried, hi Rob, how are you guys doing? I liked your video on the histogram. You also find info on the histogram in my most recent article. Okay, good. Siegfried has a terrific vlog and is a tremendous resource, I think, for Olympus cameras and Micro Four Thirds in general. And he writes very lengthy, very detailed articles on whatever topic he chooses. So you're saying that you have a recent article on something. You didn't say specifically, but um, let me just take a moment to pull up the stuff I've been talking about. Uh, Berto Di Donato. And I will get to your question, sir. I did see it. So here's Roberto's channel. So let me put a link to that. Check it out. If you like it, subscribe. And then there is, let's see, this is Siegfried's blog. So is this your most recent article? No, that's just one I bookmark. Oh, okay, good. So look how long this article is. Look it up here in this corner where my scroll bar is so tiny, Um, but this article is long and it's supplemented with lots of graphics and images. So just to give you an idea of the extent or work that Siegfried puts into every one of his articles, uh, is just amazing. I for the life of me, I can't figure out why you don't start a YouTube channel, um, so that more people can find you, right? If nothing else, just make an intro page that goes back to your blog. I mean, I do my best to promote your blog whenever I can. Like someone asked me yesterday about some PenF color profiles, and I directed them to your blog, to your page that you have about using PenF color profiles. Because they were watching, anytime somebody leaves a comment on my Kodachrome 25 video for the PenF, um, I point them to your blog. Um, and I did read your other blog, and I read them this morning. I haven't read this one yet. But you had another one more recent talking about, yeah, it was in the marketing consumer. Yeah, I read this morning. about 80%. I kind of skimmed a little bit in the middle, and then I read about 80%, and then there was a follow-up article uh, way down here that I read. Uh, it wasn't it wasn't here, but anyhow, your blog is so in depth and detail, and I recommend everybody bookmark this blog. So let me put this in here. If you haven't already, because time to time Siegfried will drop in and remind me that I need to bookmark or share the bookmark to his blog as well. Um, so yeah, I can only give praise to this blog. It's definitely probably the single best resource I've ever found on Olympus cameras, and I've learned a lot from it. Um, and it's helped me to articulate things that I do in my tutorials time to time, right? And because God, lately I've been struggling with being able to use the English language, but like I said, there's always these heavy hitters sometimes that come in and criticize the methodology. Like you do a lot of testing as well, but that happens in everything, right? I drive a Mazda. Somebody will say, "Well, I drive Honda," and we'll criticize each other's cars for different reasons. Um, but the point is to expose yourself to as much information as possible and come to form your own opinions and conclusions based on the data points that you can collect from whatever source it is. And this, in my opinion, is one of the best sources on the internet for Olympus cameras. Okay. Uh, oh, thank you, Siegfried. Yeah, I did notice you have a link to my channel in your blog. I appreciate that. And so I did share it, right? Did I share it? Yeah, there. No, that's Roberto's. Dang it. I'm not sure if I shared the link. Yeah, I did share it. Okay, there it is. So, um, oh, you just broke 300 subs. You owe it all to me. No, you don't owe it to me. That's the thing is like I can recommend a channel and vice versa. Somebody can recommend my channel like Siegfried does. It rarely converts into subscribers long term or even short term. Short term, you might get 20 or 30, but ultimately your content has to stand on its own. So I don't like to take credit, you know, uh, not serious. I jokingly take credit sometimes, but I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, your content has to stand on on its own, and any subscribers you gain, you've earned. It has nothing to do with me, right? I'm glad to give exposure to anyone I can that I think is trying to do their best. You don't have to be perfect. You just like Randy. I haven't seen Randy come in yet, but it's early for him, right? He's 3 hours behind me. Uh, he's either in bed or he's out in the desert taking pictures. But Randy's channel is by no means a high production value, high quality, interesting, informative. It's just he's just getting started and he's trying and he's putting in a good faith effort, and that's all that matters to me, right? Is that you're putting in a good faith effort to share your experience with photography. And he just happens to use Olympus, which I also encourage. But so if you have a channel or a vlog or uh, forum or whatever, just let me know and I'll check it out. And if I think it has some value, I'll be happy to share it. Why not? Spread the community as much as you can. I want to spread photography as much as I can in the community, uh, because that's what's going to keep camera companies alive, whoever they might be, Olympus, Nikon, Canon, is by getting people interested in the hobby and buying cameras and gear and etc. Right? Oh yeah, that article. I thought that was an interesting angle about in Siegfried's article about the secondhand market driving the primary business, for new cameras. I'm gonna have to reread that part. It was so much information in that article, and I read two of them this morning on your blog. So it's funny that you're here this morning, because you don't drop in every live stream. I see once every couple months maybe. But anyhow, now let me get back to Surge. I don't want to turn into no offense to Jimmy Chang, but man, he's like an hour and a half behind on his chats, on his live streams. Man, I watched his live stream yesterday, and you know, people have asked their question and left. By the time he got to him. Uh, but I love Jimmy Chang, Red 35 photography live streams. It's like they're a couple hours long, but somehow I sit through it and okay, I'm trying to find. Oh, it jumped. Okay, here's one of Serge's questions. Do you often use the depth of field preview button for landscape photography to check if the background is in focus and fine tune it? Uh, I would if I did more landscape photography. I think it's a good tool. But I think, um, a better way, honestly, is to take the picture and then, you know, look at it and zoom in on take one image, a sample image first, then just punch in and check the focus that way. Um, it's just awkward to me to push the depth of field button, and sometimes the image will be too dark to really see the focus, right? Because it's stopping the lens down, and the live view has to operate at a 30 or 60 frame per second refresh rate. So if it's a very dark scene, stopping the lens down is going to make it even harder to see if you've punched in focus. And sure, there's live view boost and all of that, but to me, it's just easier to take a picture and check the focus after the fact. So I would say if I did a lot of landscape pictures, I would probably do it that way rather than using the depth of field preview button, um, because of that disparity in light. Because when you're looking through the viewfinder, or EVF, I should say, the lens is wide open regardless of what you set the aperture at for framing and focusing. And then when you hit the depth of field preview button, you might be stopping down from f2 down to f8. So you're stopping down several stops, and it kills the light, and it makes it even harder to see if you're in focus or not. So just my thoughts on that. That's what I would do. And okay, that's a little far up. What is this one here from Victor? Victor Scorpan says, can my unexperience make me to take the photos unsharp, taken with the M1 Mark II, 40 to 150 f2.8, and at the end 150, focus infinite long distance. Shutter 1/500 to 1/1000. I found like motion blur unsharp. Uh, yeah, if you're hand holding, you know, the settings that you're showing me tells me that you should not be getting motion blur based on those settings, generally speaking. I mean, yeah, 1/1000th of a second shutter speed should be fast enough for that lens to be sharp at any focal length. But the only thing I would recommend is, okay, there's a couple things you need to do a little bit of testing to see if it's you or the camera. Okay, so what you can do is put the camera on a tripod, turn off the image stabilization on the lens and the body, and take a picture using silent shutter at 1/1000th of a second at 150 millimeters f2.8 and focus on whatever point. And then, and the idea being there is that you're eliminating all of the variables in the camera that would be present when you're hand holding, right? So now take the camera off the tripod, turn the IBIS on, turn the lens IBIS on, turn the sync on, whatever, I don't have any lenses that have that, but there's a way to make everything sync up. If the 40-150 has IBIS in it, then sync that. And use the same settings with the IBIS all turned on and use anti-shock shutter, not silent shutter. Well, do both. Do an anti-shock shutter and do a silent shutter handheld. And check the images and compare them. And if you're finding that when you're an anti-shock shutter, it looks a little motion blurred, you're probably getting shutter shock in the camera. If you're finding that you're getting motion blur when you're on silent mode, then it's most likely you're a very shaky person, you know. Uh, but you need to diagnose it somehow. Where is this motion blur coming from? Is it you or the camera? And that would be the methodology I'd use to try to figure that out. I may not, I may be missing something, so work through that thought process or that workflow and see if there's anything else you can do to try to eliminate variables in what would be causing motion blur. Because motion blur is caused by either you got shaky hands, your shutter speed's too slow, um, or shutter shock. So we need to eliminate all of these variables one way or another and isolate where the problem is. And if the problem is you, then you know what you have to do, right? You're going to have to and then I would suspect, honestly, it's shutter shock that you're getting. So you may just take a picture in silent mode, electronic shutter, and it might solve your problem. But that's the methodology I would use. And Roberto says, camera conspiracy still owes you a beer all those years ago for recommending him. That's right. I did recommend Camera Conspiracies back when he was a very small channel, like, 3 or 4 thousand subscribers. And anyhow, in one of my videos, I was small too. I think I was only at like 10,000 or something back then. Uh, here's a message for Siegfried. I accidentally clicked on. But Siegfried says he's German. Oh, Randy's here. Hey, Randy, how you doing? We were talking about you earlier. What a great YouTube channel you have. Um, I should pull it up. I didn't share that one. Let me take a second. Randy Dunphy has a channel. If I go to my channel and go to my subscriptions, I should find it a lot easier. Where is it? Oh, here. It's right at the top. They keep moving things around. Uh, where's your channel, Randy? It was here. Here it is. Oh, Randy, you have 2 more subscribers since I last looked at it here. And you put up a video, clouds, 8 seconds. Wow. Okay. Let me put a link to your channel here. All right, there's Randy's channel. Check it out. He's just getting started. So keep an eye out for him. Up and comer there. Okay. And Plato's here. Hey, Plato. Um, you were sleeping, huh, Randy? I told everybody you were either sleeping or you're out taking pictures in the desert. So you were sleeping. And then Plato says, since the last workspace update, my exit data no longer show on Flickr. Oh, just make sure when you're exporting, you have export with EXIF data. Um, let me see if I can pull up. And System Nature is here, formerly known as the Nature with Music. David Tell it. Hey, David, how are you? I'm just scrolling through to pull up this question. Now I can't remember what question I was looking for. Wait. Before I move on, Des makes a very good point. There can also be atmosphere, Rob, not shutter shock. That's true. That's true. He said it looks like motion blur, but when it's very subtle, it could be just atmosphere. That's true. Thanks for bringing that up. If it's very hazy, you know, even if you can't really see it with the naked eye, if it might look like a clear day, but when you actually take a picture, lots of things can affect when you're going long distance. Like heat can make the air move and affect, the make it look like motion blur, right? Because of heat at different places. Like sometimes like when you see heat coming out of a chimney, and things look kind of wavy behind it, that could be, that's one example of how atmosphere can affect the image. And but Victor, the methodology I gave you to test, um, the different shots on a tripod with IBIS, without IBIS, all of that. If all the shots look exactly the same, then it's not you, it's not the camera. That's probably then it's the atmosphere causing that distortion. But it's all about methodology and trying to figure things out. I can't even remember what I was looking for now, and I'm scrolling up, hoping. Uh, about EXIF data. Thank you. That is Plato. Uh, I hate this tiny, tiny little screen. I wonder if I can expand it. That doesn't help at all. But anyway. All right. It's about the missing EXIF data in workspace. I can't find the question before that. So I did update mine. So let's say I have this image. Oh, this is one of the viewer edits. So I export it like so. And you want to export it. Probably when you update it, it probably went back to EXIF JPEG, or like this is JPEG only with no EXIF data. So you want to export EXIF JPEG like that, and that should export all of the EXIF data and embed it into the file. That's all I was trying to show you. So that's 10 minutes of everybody's life they'll never get back. But hopefully that answers your question, Plato. Um, and Barana's here. Good to see you. And oops, I'm trying to read through the question. It's easy. It's bigger on this screen here than the other screen I'm looking at. So you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, what I look at to try to find questions and stuff. Uh, all right. So David Tellett, I'm working on a video to talk about the double exposure. Um, but if you watch my video on my toilet paper challenge, in that video I did do image overlay, which is a kind of double exposure where you can overlay images as many times as you want. So I wasn't able to demonstrate it last time you were in the live stream when you asked that question. So I was going to make a short video like Ask robtrek video specifically addressing that. Uh, but since you're here now, I'm just going to tell you, if you watch that video, my toilet paper challenge video, I did go through the steps of how I did image overlay. And then from there, you can see how you can duplicate that and overlay image after image after image in an unlimited fashion. You know, once you get past three or four, I kind of lose track of where everything is. But by default, you can only double exposure two images. But once you capture the images, you can overlay them again on top of each other in camera using image overlay feature. And I demonstrate that in that toilet paper challenge video that I did, which I will give you a link to that. What is your video sound like? Go to artlist.io. So that's the link to my toilet paper video challenge. And it's really a good video, actually. Because let's see, let me show you the final image I got. But you can see here I'm doing some in-camera post-processing. But, oh, God, freaking ads. I know, right? It's like how I make a couple of pennies and I'm complaining. But this is the final image I came up with. And I did this totally in camera. And one of the features I used was image overlay. But I'm going to make another short video, Ask robtrek video, that goes into some of the caveats and, all my usual stuff, right? But okay. That was that. And Roberto got his first adapted lens. Let me put that up. Tamron 300 millimeter f5.6. Wow. Yeah, that's going to be huge. Yeah, and that's when they were still making things mostly out of metal. It started a transition there, but yeah, the premium lenses like the Tamron 300 would have been very heavy. But yeah, make a video about that, Roberto. I'm sure we'll all watch it, right? That'll be fun. Wow. Randy has the Minolta 100 to 500 f8. Man, weighs about 10 pounds. I don't think the zooms back in the day were very good. As a rule of thumb, the really good zooms from back in the day, the 70s and early 80s, I'd say, there are a few good ones, but they're very expensive because they are good. But most of the zooms, when you look back in the 70s, 80s, you can buy dirt cheap. and there's a reason because most of them sucked. Um, it wasn't really, I guess, until the 2000s. I feel like that, my experience doesn't go back that far, but when I used to shop for vintage lenses to buy, cheap, I noticed the zooms were all very, very cheap. And then when I bought a few, you find out very quickly why is because they sucked. And there were a few that were very expensive. And I'm just based on the price, I'm just assuming that they were probably very good. See, Randy's confirming it's a terrible lens, right? Like I say, so they're not all bad, but I would say 90% of them sucked, and Randy's just sort of, dropping another drop of water in the bucket in that theory, right? There's a 100 to 500, don't buy it. And Ed is saying, Zoom for photo is good nowadays, but for binoculars is still forbidden subject. Ah, yeah, that's right. They do have some binoculars that have zooms in them. I just bought a pair of binoculars, some El Cheapo thing for $25 to help me with my astrophotography. Oh, I have to show you guys, because God, there's so many things I want to talk about. I didn't talk about any of them yet. Let me see if I can. Because you guys are much more interesting than I am, honestly. So I'd rather talk about your YouTube channels and what? No battery? Oh yeah. I want to show you guys like a recent purchase I made. Um, Look at that. I got a tracker. Um, okay, let me turn the IBIS on. There. Look, when I have the IBIS off, I can just barely hold this camera, and then when I tap the shutter button to engage the IBIS. But yeah, there it is on my tripod. I have my star tracker. It's a Skywatcher, and I did get I did set out one night to take a few images using the tracker in my backyard. And the light pollution here is so bad, but I was pretty impressed with the tracking ability. Just on my first attempt, I was able to do the polar alignment and, all the complicated crap. It took me an hour to figure that crap out, or if not more. But anyway, I got it all set up and working and was able to track a deep sky object that I wanted to take a photograph with. And I used my 75 millimeter f1.8, and everything was perfect, as good as it can be for just being in my backyard, right? Uh, but with my dying eyes, I missed focus. I wasn't using the M1 Mark III with a Starry Sky AF. I just tried to manually focus on my EM5 Mark III. Let me see if I can show you guys. Uh, what's this? Randy says, I have the 80 to 200 f2.8D. Now that's a great lens. Yeah, that lens, that is a good lens. Actually, you're right. And from the 90s. So yeah, that makes sense. Like 80s, 70s, and 80s, and before the zooms were really bad. Oh, I don't want to show that image. I pull up my Lightroom. I want to show you my first attempt at Astro. I'm actually going to go visit Ben next month, and we're going to do some Astro stuff together. Uh, what the heck? This is one of my photo jobs. 2021, first quarter. Let's see. Is it that? Yes, there's one there. What's this? I thought I tried one more time. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one with the tracker. So this is one of the images, the 45 millimeter uh, or 75 millimeter f1.8. I set it to f2.2. These were 6-second exposures at ISO 200. So that gives you some perspective how bright it is where I live. And I was pointing it at the darkest point of the sky, which is kind of east of me towards where the river is. But even then, I'm at like ISO 200, 6 seconds. It's like, but this was the deep sky object I was trying to capture. And let me zoom in. Let's do 400%. That's too much. But you can see, what the heck, is this the JPEG? I'm seeing like artifacts here. It is the JPEG. Hold on. Let me move over one. This is the raw image. Give it a second to render. All right. So yeah, this is a single image, but I can see some of the dust clouds around these stars. I forget what deep sky object this is called. There's a little bit of coma here, maybe, or is motion blur. But yeah, I mean, if I nailed focus, I think I would have had a decent thing because I tried to stack all these together, and you can see as I was tracking, the tracker moved down. This is my roof line right here, but you can see the object is still here in the top left. So everything's stacked very nicely. Let me change this to just the raw images. Here's the time lapse of that. I guess I can play this for you. See my roof line moving up from the bottom left as the tracker's going? But the deep sky object I was taking a picture of is right here. Anyhow, that's enough of that. So that's one thing I had going on. And let's see. Yeah, I can't remember the name of that object. Honestly, Ed, I just can't remember. And then DeMorgan says, use the Bahtinov focus mask for astrophotography. It makes, okay, that's interesting. No idea what that is. Randy says, nice tracker. Jeff says, binoculars. I thought I saw some questions here. Let me just back up. So Roberto Woosenton, 1000 millimeter. Nice, small, and heavy. Okay. And Matt says, I've been playing around with my CZJ Practica 300 millimeter f4 recently. Weighs about 1 kilo and is super usable. Well, 1 kilo is not bad, actually. and it's quite usable. Good. Yeah, but yeah, the primes, I think primes, almost regardless of age, if it's in good condition, prime lenses from any era is pretty good. And Roberto's going to make a video this weekend, so definitely keep tabs on his channel. Uh, Des is asking, I thought I saw. Says it might be the Trifid Nebula. That's not it. I don't think. I still haven't figured out how to identify this stuff. Even with the Stellarium software, I'm still getting used to finding things and naming them correctly. Crab Nebula, that sounds more familiar. I think Randy's more on point with what that object was. That sounds familiar, like I was looking for that. I think that's correct, but I'm not 100%. All right, here's a question. In Live View Boost on the M13, what is the difference between on 1 and on 2? Oh, I have a whole video on that, actually, but long story short, on 1 brightens the exposure and tries to maintain like a 0 EV exposure in the live view or EVF so that you can see everything, right? Regardless of what the actual exposure is going to be, it tries to brighten the image up so that you can see it as if it were normal exposure. On 2 is for very low light situations, like it's almost pitch black out. So what on 2 does is it slows the refresh rate of the sensor down to say 3 or 4 frames per second. Because right now I think the refresh rate might be 60 frames or 120 frames per second. It refreshes very quickly to draw the image on your live view. But when you go into on 2, it drops that refresh rate down to about 4 frames per second, so it has enough time to gather light to the sensor to transmit so that you can see it in your live view, which is great. You can see in very dark, right, scenarios, but the downside is the camera has to be very still, in low light, because as soon as you move the camera, you'll start to get motion blur in the live view, right? Because you're working at effectively a very slow shutter speed, which is actually the refresh rate of the sensor. So go to my channel. I'll try and pull it up. Let's see. It's episode number. Oh, I didn't number this one. Oh, that's EVF on 1 on 2. What were you asking? Okay, there's actually 2 videos. This one is about the on 1 on 2 for the EVF, which is different than the on 1 on 2 for Live View Boost. So ignore the link I just posted. That wasn't your question. This is the episode you want. It's episode number 56. So for Bob Finley, this is the episode that you want. The one I just posted, not the one before. And this will go into a lot more detail about the on 1 and on 2 and show you in real time, not in real time, but in the video I go through some examples of the difference between on 1 and on 2. All right, and I could have sworn I saw another question here. That's for Bob. Uh, Des is talking about workshops, which I will discuss. Oh, because it's going to be about astrophotography. Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. Lavie says, "Hi, I'm 15-year-old. I only have 300." Okay, here's a question. From 11:21. Oh, I'm only 8 minutes behind. So 11:21 a.m. Got you. All right. Labib Sultan says, I'm only 15 years old, or not only, says, I'm 15 years old. I only have $300 if I'm going to learn making some video. What Olympus camera should I buy? EM10 Mark II for video. That has really all of the features that you'll need to do video, basic video and learn video. So EM10 Mark II with a kit lens. You should be able to get that well under $300 or less, and that'll get you started. Um, it doesn't have the fully articulating screen, it just has the tilt screen. So if that's an issue, you might be able to find an EM5 Mark II for about 300, but you won't get a lens with it, most likely. But the EM5 Mark II adds the fully articulating screen and the mic jack. Video feature-wise, it's exactly the same, but functionally, it has a mic jack and a fully articulating screen. However, in practice, if you're really serious about going into video, these are not limitations because series videographers, they record audio separately, and a lot of times they use an external monitor which has a much larger screen. And they start setting up all of these rigs. So the mic jack and the fully articulating screen are convenience features typically for vloggers and regular consumers. But if you're thinking about learning to make some video, uh, like going to filmmaking, you'll be fine with the M10 Mark II. But that said, EM5 Mark II might be a better starting point for you because of the mic jack and fully articulating screen, because you're not quite ready to jump into buying, external monitors, external recorders, external, audio systems. That just things just start to pile up, right? So your money might be better spent on the EM5 Mark II. Another option is if you can find a Panasonic GH3, GH4. Those are going to be over 300 though, unfortunately. But Panasonic, yeah, unless you get a GH series, it doesn't matter if you get Panasonic or Olympus, I think. Olympus EM5 Mark II is your best bet, but you can get by with an EM10 Mark II, but just keep in mind you're going to have to record audio externally in most cases, which is a good teaching lesson. But that would be my recommendation if you wanted to buy Olympus. I mean, ultimately, you can just use your cell phone to learn video. You don't need to buy a camera. You can start with your cell phone. But if you want to get into interchangeable lenses and, you know, take your game up a notch, right? You can only do that with a legit camera. All right, and then right after that was a comment from Siegfried about um, well, this is in relationship to, yeah, Olympus is very active now, it looks like, with their live streams and tutorials, which is great. So I didn't see the one on macro, 'Cause I'm just not a macro guy, you know. So I didn't want to watch it, but I definitely will watch the upcoming one on astrophotography. And so definitely check that out. I have it bookmarked somewhere, but I can't find it now. I wanted to bring it up for everyone, but I'll find it before uh, it comes up on the 23rd, which is in a few days. And I'll put a link into my community forum so everybody can go and watch it. We can all watch it together. So watch my community forum, not my community forum, the community tab on my YouTube channel. You know, there's a community tab somewhere on my channel that, you know, I post a lot of junk sometimes, like pictures of my dog, but I'll post something there. Okay, I'm going to sit back for a second. It's 4:30 here in Auckland, New Zealand. Oh my goodness. It is early. And Dick Budnick has a uh it was after Bob Finley's. I was trying to search for this Bodanov thing. $20. Oh, that's so interesting. When we were talking about astrophotography, this came up. Man, what's with this B&H verify stuff? This came up, right? Oh, come on. I got too many windows open on my other side here. Yeah, this thing came up. So this thing's supposed to help you focus, huh? Interesting. Never seen such a thing. I'll have to look into that. Let me just bookmark this. I'll look at this later. Thanks. I forget who recommended that. Um, and then the guy from Malaysia, Robin Wong. It's Robin Wong. Got a contract to be an Olympus, I think, visionary. He's now an Olympus visionary. He's really excited about that. So congratulations, Robin, for getting back into the program, and I'm really glad Olympus is looking out for you, or JIP, I should say, OM Digital Solutions is looking out for their ambassador. You know, it's very encouraging when you see things like that happen since the sale of Olympus to JIP. So I think, you know, that combined with all of the active live streams or educational content that they're putting out is very encouraging. Because I can't imagine a company that is thinking about selling everything off, and, you know, all of the crap we heard last year about them chopping the company up and selling off the patents and bits. Um, I don't think they would do all of these other things that we've seen if that was their intent. I mean, ultimately, time will tell. We'll have to see, right? Uh, I don't know why I'm showing you guys my chat screen. Nobody wants to look at that. You can see the chat on your own screen, right? Um, but ultimately, you know, we'll have to see product. We'll have to see product, basically. But the support is definitely there, right? They are still supporting us through education and through our Olympus visionaries like Robin Wong, Peter, Jimmy. So we're seeing the foundation for support there, but let's see some product, right? Let's see a Pen F2 or something. And Siegfried wrote, like I said, a very long couple of articles about the camera market for Micro Four Thirds on his blog. So, and I put links to it in the earlier parts of this stream. So it's an interesting read. Um, definitely, I think time well spent. They're very, very long, but if you're into that, it's an interesting read. If you're into business, right? Because they're very business orientated articles about camera industry. And if you like reading about business and marketing and all of that, you'll like it. If you want to learn about taking pictures, it'll bore you to tears, right? It's like an insurance seminar. It's like, but I was a little bit interested about his points of views and everything, and in business because I've been in business for my whole life, so it's very interesting to see someone else's perspective on the same thing that's happening to all of us, right? Steve Wolf says, in reference to my, let's see, Steve Wolf was at 1129. I can't find it, but I can see it right here. Steve Wolf says it looked to me like the M42 Orion Nebula. The three stars of Orion's belt are at the top. Bingo! I'm almost 99% sure that's correct of the object that I was my deep sky object that I was trying to get a picture of. But, I'm like in a Bortle 8, area, right? It's like, it's hard to see even the moon on a night sometimes. It's so bad. Well, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. It's really bright here. Like it was cloudy last night, all clouds. Um, but the clouds were just gray, bright gray, and purple. It was like a bright purple sky last night because it was all cloud cover. But all of the light coming up from the city and street lights and everything just, it's like so light polluted here. That's why I was shocked when I could see any of the dust clouds around that nebula in that image. But thank you, Steve. You nailed it. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Because it was about 8 p.m. at night, and I'm over here in Maryland in the US, and that was almost straight up, and then it moved down. So by 9:30, it was below the horizon. If that helps narrow it down. And Victor is adding, Victor Scorpan says, is asking, thanks for your tips. How to check the issue with unsharp images if you have the time. Not in the stream, then check for samples. Uh, yeah, I would just punch in like 400% in like Olympus Workspace and compare the images side by side. That's how I would check. And then he says that the lens had a small lift when it was fitted to the camera. I suspect this may be one reason. Sent camera to Olympus service to be checked. The guy who received the case tell that this may not be the issue. Okay, well, we'll see. Let me know when you get your lens back in another stream if they found an issue with your lens. It's not a cheap lens, right? Uh, Ed says you just scored an EM5 Mark II with two lenses for $300. Man, that's awesome. That is pretty awesome. I got mine with one lens brand new for 700, and I thought that was a good deal. What's the difference between an OM Digital Visionary and an Ambassador? I don't know. Have to ask Robin. There may not be an ambassador status. Maybe there's visionary and educator. I think ambassador is used by like Nikon or Canon or somebody. That's their terminology. But I don't know if Olympus has a ambassador status. But maybe. Like I said, I don't keep up with that side of it too much because they never offered it to me, which I'm fine with. I don't mind I don't mind being fully independent, right? It gives a certain credibility to my videos and recommendations that I don't that I'm not tied to any contractually to any company. There's and I'm not saying by any means that the credibility of people of the likes of Robin, Peter, Jimmy, Maddie, I don't question the credibility of their videos at all, but they are contractually have an agreement with Olympus. Uh, so they can't talk about a lot of things. They can speculate just like anyone else, but it 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 makes it very awkward for them, I think, when they're very outgoing and like to communicate with their viewers, and they know something but they can't say anything. That's gotta hurt. You know, I would go frickin' nuts. If they made me a visionary, I'd probably be a visionary until one product came out, and then I would blow it, right? and uh, and then they would pull my visionary status away after one product release because I would have a hard time keeping that a secret. Like, man, if I knew a Pen F2 was coming out a month before everybody else, oh my God, I would I would lose my mind. I'd probably just shut down, like not go online at all for a month until it was actually announced. And then what's the point of that, right? So Marshall's in a Bortle 8 also. Okay, yeah. It's rough, right? Um, and Randy's asking how long the exposure for an Orion Nebula. It depends on your Bortle, where you're at, right? If you're in a very bright sky like I am, I can only get about 6 seconds with a tracker. Uh, it was my first attempt, so don't ask me. I'm really bad at it. Ideally, I know some people can get like 60 seconds to 3 minutes exposures with the same tracker I'm using and Olympus gear, right? Ben from Narrowband channel. So, I'd hop on the Narrowband channel and ask him there on one of his videos, because he has videos on all different lenses. So whatever lens you're using, find that video on his channel, then you can ask him on that channel. Because in theory, you should be able to do very, very long exposures with a tracker. So I think my statement about depends what Bortle area you're in is irrelevant when you have a tracker, right? It's more your exposure time is more relative to your focal length without a tracker. But once you have a tracker, I guess it doesn't matter, right? But I'm very new to Astros, so as I learn things, right, I will definitely develop a beginner's tutorial to get a couple of couple of basic shots. I mean, there's lots of them out there, right? But you know, I haven't done one yet, so I might as well. And because I'm really excited about it. But man, it's like April is like always raining. March is cold and windy, so it's astrophotography is all about weather, right? You have to have clear skies and you know bright skies, like very little light pollution, all that stuff. It's very very complicated type of photography. Oh, that's interesting. The Morkan. The Morkan is. Let me see if I can find it. That was at 11:44. This is for Victor Scorpin, right? DeMorgan says that he uses Photoshop to see what areas are in focus and what the depth of field is and field curvature quicker than comparing lenses. So honestly, that's all Greek to me, you know? I have no idea how I would do it in Photoshop, but I'm posting the comment there in case that statement makes sense to some of you or points you in the right direction. But I don't know personally. But I do know DeMorkin is a very competent photo editor and photographer, right? So I'm putting the comment there for those of you that that statement might make sense. But he really posts some very long, detailed posts on my forum at robtrek.com. And the most recent one was about a week ago, and I started to read it, but I just my neck was, back then my neck was hurting, so I couldn't sit at a computer too long. So I said I got to save this for another time. So I might read it this week now that I'm feeling better. I almost forgot about it, but definitely check out my forum for anything posted by DeMorkin, particularly about any kind of subjects that he talks about. And again, it's just another perspective, right? Another, in my opinion, quality source of information. And you take in information as much as you can, uh, and do your due diligence, and uh, to help. Ultimately, the goal is to help you understand photography and be a better photographer. And I think DeMorkin has a lot of great posts that will push you in that direction if the topics he's talking about are of interest to you. But anyway, I just wanted to show that more to talk about DeMorkin than about this particular topic because this, to me, I just punch in and compare things side by side. But apparently, DeMorkin has some other methodology that might be easier. And David Tellett is asking, this was at 11:40. Where am I at? Slowly creeping back. But there were some good answers here from others that I think, uh, man, 11:40. Yeah, what's the smallest pocketable M43 old or new? I think the GM1. And then some people said, oh yeah, John Utse has it here. Panasonic GM1 or GM5 with a 20 millimeter pancake. And Ed says he believes it's the GM5. So yeah, definitely. And Siegfried says the GF5. So I'm sure you've seen all of this already. But yeah, my answer would also be like the GM1, GM5 series from Panasonic. I think I saw you had one though. Don't you have like a little Panasonic? When we went, David Tellett is local to me, so we go on photo walks with our local club here time to time. And I thought I saw you with a little pocketable like GM5. I think I could be wrong. I got that senior memory now. And Randy says, where I live, I'm in Bortle 5. Where I go in the desert is Bortle 3. Man, you are lucky. A Bortle 3? I think I have to drive about 10 hours to get to that. Red is an Olympus ambassador. Okay, so there is more than there is visionary ambassador and educator. Joseph Ellis was an Olympus educator, I believe, as well as a few others. I should get more familiar with the Olympus community, like the guys with all the titles and everything, because they got their titles for a reason. They're very competent in whatever field they're in, right? And DeMorgan says, but you would have that month to use it. I forgot what we were talking about, DeMorgan, to be honest. Roberto says, robtrek is an Olympus missionary. He's on a mission. I'm not that I'm yeah, I'm far from on a mission. I try. I try to help people when I can, but yeah. But thanks. And Ed says that I it does matter. Let me pull this up because this is relevant. I don't want to steer people in the wrong direction. Uh, it does matter, tracker or not. You can only grab so much per frame. So this was in reference to Randy's question about what's the shutter speed? How long a shutter speed did I use when I was taking a picture of some nebula? And my answer was just all over the place, right? But Ed says it does matter, tracker or not. You can only grab so much per frame. So again, I have a lot to learn, right, about astrophotography. But typically what I've seen Ben do is 1 minute to 3 minute exposures per frame when he's using a tracker. Without a tracker, that's when I think it makes a difference if your focal length before you start to get star trails. Um, so that's all I'm going to say on the topic until I get more experience and knowledgeable about it. Because right now I'm just blowing out my butt anything about astrophotography because I have no idea. I had a couple of nights where I tried to use that tracker with interesting, promising results. I made the mistakes, but I can see the potential of using a tracker. Uh, like I just learned how to do polar alignment, all of that stuff, man. It's very complicated if you've never done it before. Once I do it though, a few times, I'm gonna get good at it. And you guys, I'm gonna take a picture of something and and be really proud of it. And then I'll probably sell the tracker after that because after I do things once, I'm like, okay, but I don't know. We'll see. You haven't been out in 2 weeks, Randy? Wow, that's unusual. I thought you went out almost every day. But now that you're recording stuff and putting on your YouTube channel, I can see where you're going. Oh, DeMorgan says I posted on your forum how to do it. Okay, good. Thank you, DeMorgan. So, this was in reference to comparing sharp images. So, if you have Photoshop, check out DeMorgan's post on my forum about it. Oh, David says I have the David says great, thanks. I had so the GM1, GM5, but he said he has the RX 102 and he doesn't like it. That's interesting. I thought that was a cool little camera. That's what I remember. That's right. That's what you had was an RX 100. Maybe a Panasonic LX10. But heck, you can buy a GM1 or GM5 for the same price as an LX10, right, from Panasonic. But the LX10 is supposed to be pretty good, but or Panasonic LX100. That's an interesting camera. The LX100, version 1 or version 2. Uh, very, very interesting camera. It's very tempting for me to get one of those. And then, of course, the Fuji X100s, the Fuji X20 and X30. I'm sure you're familiar with all of these cameras. So I'm not telling you anything new, but I just thought I'd throw them out there for the sake of others as well. And Roberto says Zcams make small M43 cameras. Okay. But you, Rob, should be an Olympus missionary. Oh, thank you, Thomas. Okay, sometimes I put chats up. Yeah, I'm pulling my senior card. That's right. It's so tempting when I go out. Like when I go out with the photo club here, we go to lunch afterwards or breakfast, and then everywhere has like a senior discount, 55 and older. And I'm like so tempted to take them up on that, but I got a couple of more months before I turn 55. But it's like, man, I can save like $2 or $3, but you know, I'm gonna lose sleep overnight if I start lying about my age just to get a discount. So I just don't do it. But I would definitely, it's definitely tempting because nobody cards you, right? And God, I remember getting carded to see if I was 18 or 21. Now I'm gonna start getting carded to see if I'm 55 and older. It's like it just time flies, you know. But it seems like yesterday I was being carded for being 18. Um, and Tony says you need to take black frames to do long exposures. Yes, I did do some black frames, and I think I did some neutral flats. I can't remember. It's all a blur to me now. I definitely took some black frames, and then I took some other frames as well. I think they were neutrals or flats. Ended up not using those because it, but yeah, it's all new to me. So I'm definitely going in the right direction because I was pretty happy with the results I got, even though they were out of focus. Meaning the noise levels were very low. I was able to see the dust clouds in the nebula, and I stacked everything successfully, and I was able to crop in on the image. I mean, everything went as good as could be hoped, expected for a first try, right? Or second try. It might have been my second try. The first try, I didn't know how to do polar alignment, nothing. So that was a wreck. So I don't even like to count that as trying because I had no idea. Uh, but when I went out the second night, tried to figure everything out and set it up correctly. And then the problem is right now it seems like there's nothing very interesting in the sky this time of year. It's like everything that's fascinating, like I wanted to try to get the whatchamacallit, that galaxy, one of the big galaxies. I don't know why I can't remember. The galaxy, one of the galaxies. But it goes below the horizon like at 8 o'clock. And it's too bright at 8 o'clock. The sun's not even set practically at 8 o'clock in the evening. So wintertime is best. Like winter solstice, it seems like you have a lot of night sky and a lot of options. But man, in the summer, it's like the nights get really short. You know, you got like 7 or 8 hours of nighttime, and maybe 6 hours of that is dark. And then within that 6 hours, only 1 or 2 hours has an object that I could actually get a picture of. And then it has to be a clear night, low Bortle count. It's complicated. It's like all these things. You can't just like tip out the front door and do an astrophotography picture. You know, unlike street photography or landscape or anything else. If I want to go take some pictures, I can just tip out the front door and go take some freaking pictures. But astrophotography, my God, it's like so complicated. Just the planning and the gearing and timing and all of that. And the moon has got to be out of the sky. It's like so many things. But I guess that's fun, right? It's the journey, right? I'm trying to make it fun. I'm making it sound like it's stressing me out, but it's actually a lot of fun because once you have all the conditions right, I mean, it's fun and it's frustrating at the same time. Once you have all the conditions right, I think the reward will be tremendous, you know? But anyhow, I'm just I'm just telling you as a beginning astrophotographer myself what I'm going through. It's just it's a lot to it that I'll get there eventually. And Ed says on astrophotography, let me pull this up. Ed has some words of wisdom here. 1157. All right, I'm catching up again. Here we go. So he says, on astrophotography, you are limited to your camera and position, but also the cooling of the element, as it will start to bloom when you take longer frames. Yes. So the when you mean heating of the element, are you talking about the lens and or the sensor heating up, causing the bloom? Um, because I know Ben uses like those lens heaters on his lens cap or something to keep the lens from getting dew heater. He called it a dew heater. And then he uses a grip with external power supply so the battery doesn't generate any heat. Um, so he's very sensitive to heat. I know that. Um, oh, okay. David says, thanks for all the info. I'll research all of them. Okay. Yeah, because, David, I was looking for a small, compact pocketable camera for myself. Ironically, not ironically, but I ended up with the TG5. It's a little micro sensor, I don't even want to call it micro sensor. It's a tiny sensor, two-thirds sensor. And, but I don't know. I just ended up with that as my pocketable camera. And I'm happy with that. But of course, your compromises in image quality compared to like an LX100 or something more serious. But that's where I ended up. It says dark frames and bias, throw in a scatter and enjoy. So apparently, Ed, you're pretty competent with astrophotography. Yeah, we'll save it for another day. I have a whole live stream on astrophotography with Ben, who's actually, hardcore astrophotographer like yourself. So we did do it. So look at my channel for that stream if you haven't seen it already. It's really good. PhotoPills, Serge says PhotoPills is a good app for Astro. Yes, I do have. Well, I ended up buying this other app to help me with the polar alignment. It was $3 or $4. I did not get PhotoPills, but I have Stellarium, Sam Console for the tracker, GPS tools. Where's the app I just paid for though? It's called Polar something. I hate it. I paid for this app. Now I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Polar. It's called Polar Aligner Pro. This app here is really good. It I mean, I was just like in 10 seconds I got a polar alignment done using this app. It wasn't, 100% accurate because I did it very quickly and I'm sure there's some precision issues with this app and my phone, but that being said, I'm only doing 6-second exposures, right? For about 10 minutes. So the polar alignment wasn't that critical in this case, but I did learn, or I did use this app to do it. David Tellet's asking, so do you use live time when on the tracker? No. You use the intervalometer, and you set up. You can use the intervalometer for up to 60 seconds per image. If you need to do longer than that, then you need to use an external intervalometer, that you would buy separately and attach to the camera to control it. The tracker has a camera controller on it. I would have to buy the adapter plug but it goes from the tracker to your camera. Then the tracker will control the camera shutter. Uh, so there's a couple of ways to do it, right? You can do it yourself with the intervalometer, or you can get a separate intervalometer, like wireless trigger, or you can get the cable to go from the trigger to your camera. Then the tracker will control the camera shutter speed and all of that. I think. I know it'll control the camera shutter. I don't know if it controls the shutter duration and all of that. Maybe it does. I haven't done that part of it yet, but uh, so there's a lot of different ways once you start to get into it. So like I said, once I get, give me about 30 or 60 days before I can actually start to talk about astrophotography with any level of competency. Because right now I'm just blowing out my butt right now. I don't really know 100% anything. I'm just regurgitating what I remember from the live stream with Ben. I don't have any real practical experience. But I can definitely tell you, lifetime, no. Not with a tracker. That's an interesting idea, though. But I don't think that would be a good idea. Andromeda Galaxy. Thank you, Ed. When I couldn't remember the name of the galaxy before, yes, the Andromeda Galaxy. You'd think I would remember that because that was from Lost in Space, right? The TV show from the 60s. They were going for the Andromeda Galaxy, I'm pretty sure, if I remember that correctly. I don't know why I can remember something from a 1960s TV show, but can't remember something I did last week. But anyway, um, Andromeda Galaxy, thank you. We all try something new because we're bored. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, John, you're funny. Um, 1201. Let me scroll down to 1201. I'm starting to get a feel for looking at this and this screen so I can find the questions easier. And John says, I was going to start taking some of those pills that are supposed to help with memory, but I could, yeah, I know. They have a commercial on every 10 minutes on some news channel I watch about improving your memory, some pills, but I can't remember it either. I got to write it down next time that commercial comes on. De Morgan says 3 a.m. is the best time to start astrophotography. The atmosphere is clearest then. Oh, that's interesting. So that's even more information I didn't know. Hmm. Interesting. Ray says, I can't wait for the long astro shots with my EM1X, which is probably the best heat sinks in the camera. Yeah, true that. That's interesting. I'll have to talk to Ben about that. Because the EM1 Mark III has the new processor, which he says runs much cooler. I wonder how that compares to an EM1X that actually has heat sinks, but the older processor. And System Natura says, no chance of me ever doing astrophotography in London due to the virtually ongoing cloud cover and the continuous success of artificial lighting. Oh, okay. We'll see you later, nature. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're talking about Astro, and I'm not even like talking about Astro with any level of competency. So, too long and rotation has an effect to need to align them. All right, then. I guess you meant align. Yeah, Randy's a newbie too. Yeah, we'll learn together, right, Randy? Um, pull the senior card again. That's right. Oh, Cornet's back. Hey, Cornet. Chuck, good to see you. Uh, It's asking me something. You're lucky you can see the North Star where you are. Here in Florida with my bad skies, difficult to see the North Star as it has lots of lower. Yeah, it is very low on the horizon, but I would imagine it's even worse in Florida. Or if you say so, I don't know. All right, Randy's gonna go on another adventure. Okay, Rahul, we'll see you later. Boy, you've been quiet all session here, but I'm glad you could make it in. And Rahul says, have seen the JP Mestavadino 12-year astro exposure. No. At Raho, amazing work. What amazing work has Raho done? I mean, I see Raho in the streams time to time, and I can't remember if he's shared a link with us before. But what the heck are you talking about, Randy? Maybe on Flickr? Is he on Flickr? Have an account on Flickr? I need to follow him. Let me pull that up. I'm just gonna type Raho and see if it comes up. Raho. Search people. Oh wait, my chat section hasn't. And DeMorgan says, need to stack shorter shots as the camera moves in the curve of the tracker, the lens rotates and the photo will smear. Ah, okay, DeMorgan, that makes sense. There is a Raho here. These are nice. If this Raho is an Olympus shooter, no, that's a phone. I'm looking at this guy, Raho. Sony. I mean, I don't care what camera he's using. I just want to I have to log in to follow and all that. I mean, these are great images, but I don't want to follow more people than I can follow mentally anyway. Okay. Why did the chat go all the way up to the top? Let's see. Google JP Astro exposure. Okay, I can do that. So, photographer spends 12 years exposing photo of the milk. Wow. Okay, I gotta bookmark this. And then my photo bookmarks. There we go. That's interesting. I'll share this link with everybody. Okay, cool. Um, Stephen Long, how you doing? Tony B says, just Google it. Oh, okay, I got it. So Raho was talking about the guy that took 12 years to make a photo. And Tony says, just Google it. I get it. Okay, I'm on the same page now, everybody. Very good. 12 years shutter speed. Wow. That's amazing. Anyway, there's a link there for everybody. I'll check that out later. That's fascinating. Oh, okay. I think I better call it here. It's been a couple hours, so um, I'm sorry, Stephen. I have to go if you just got here. But I need to kind of limit my time at a desk because I don't want to aggravate my neck again. It's getting better every day, but yeah, I got to kind of limit. Plus, who wants to watch 3 hours of live stream after the fact either, right? So it's always a good idea to keep them down to a couple hours. So thanks everyone for taking time out of your day, spending it with me. I really appreciate it. I always have a good time talking to everyone. And I should be back on Sunday, if not sooner. Next week, I might be doing a collaboration, and we're going to be talking about computers. Um, Dang, I didn't get to talk about everything I wanted to talk about today um, because I tried the high res shot upscale thing in Photoshop, and I had some thoughts on that. But let me organize my thoughts on that a little bit. Maybe I'll do a short video like Peter did, because Peter just did a video on that. But now I'm going to start going into another long spiel, so I'm going to cut it off here. So you guys have a good weekend. We'll see you again soon.